Welcome to The Onion Peel, a show where we get real, raw, and honest about life. It's a space where authenticity lives and hope resides. The Onion Peel is a place where we peel back the layers of our stories and discover the unexpected flavoring that each one brings. Hey guys, I'm your host and semi-crazy Christian, Angela McConnell. I'm a middle-aged mom of 5 with a dead husband, and I've been through some shit in my life. Now, I'm on a mission to bring hope to the world. So join me as we journey through this onion and find hope in the tears. You ready to peel this thing? Hey guys. Thanks for joining me today on The Onion Peel. I decided today I would talk about basically what transpired for the rest of the summer, which only lasted about 6 or 7 weeks until school started. We had gotten a reprieve on the house. We had no answers. We just were blessed enough to have had the vice president of the particular department, who I guess dealt with our situation or dealt with our case, have a compassionate heart towards us and actually wanted to try and help us. He was at least able to give me a breath and put things kind of in a holding pattern, at least for that moment. There were no answers. There were no, hey, you get to stay, nothing like that. It was just, let me see what I can do for you, which was incredible because I never thought that I would even have that. It was a huge, huge sign of hope, a huge sign of hope. Not necessarily that we would get the house back, but just that we didn't have to leave right then, that I got to be in the surroundings of where my husband last was, our home where our family was raised. The place where he cut the grass last. The place where he walked in the kitchen to make the kids a bagel. The place where his clothes were still hung up. That was an incredible gift of hope. Because it provided us a small window to just be able to sit in this grief in the last place that he was. And that was so crucial for me and the kids. I still knew we had to move, and I still knew it was going to be soon, but it didn't have to be today. And you know, sometimes that's enough. Sometimes when you know the change is there and the change is still going to happen and the change is not going to change, but at least for today, it gets to be status quo. At least for today, you get to have a breath. And that is priceless. And that is hope. So those immediate weeks after Don died, I basically sat in one spot in the house. We had this pea green contemporary style love seat that if I showed you a picture of, you would surely say, well, that certainly doesn't look comfortable. And in actuality, it wasn't. But for some reason, at that moment in time, it was the most comfortable, safest place I could be. Don't even know why. It just was. So I sat on that horrifically colored couch and put my knees up to my chest, wrapped a blanket around me, and stared out the window at the lake for weeks. And I'd look out the window, and I'd question God every second that I could. I was so confused, so utterly confused. I had gotten up every day for the last, I can't even tell you how many years, and said, God, what can I do for you today? I had raised my children up in His name, with Him at the foundation of our family. I had done all the right things as a Christian. I checked all the boxes. I thanked him every single day for my family, for my community that I got to live in with my family, for our home and the beautiful piece of property that we got to live on. There was never a moment that went by, and this is the truth, that I wouldn't look outside at the spectacular view of the water and say, who gets to live like this? This is incredible. Thank you so much. I can't believe that this is where I live. I can't believe that this is my life. And I meant it all the time. There were so many nights that I would sit out on our little walkway by the water. And you could just, hear the silence of the night with the ripples on the water, or the put, put, put of the boats going by, where the moon would just be lit up by the reflection of the water. And I'd just take a breath and I'd say, I just don't deserve this. This is so spectacular. I can't believe that this is where I get to live. So as I sat on that green couch, looking out at what was once my life, I just was beyond perplexed. It was like, what in the hell did I do wrong to deserve this? Why would you crush us like this? Why wouldn't you put a stop to whatever Don's choice was? Why? What good could possibly come from not having Don here, from having our family destroyed, from taking my house away? I couldn't believe it. I was beyond pissed. Because what I said was, excuse me, God, don't mean to interrupt you and your extremely busy day. However, there's a lot of people in this world that need a little bit of a reality check. I'm not one of them. I'm already getting up every day and serving you. I know that you're the creator of the universe. I got it all down, right? I've read the book. I've volunteered at church. Don volunteered at church all the time. We were doing what we were supposed to be doing. And yet you're choosing to give me a damn lesson? Yeah. I don't think so. And I was pissed. And I was just so confused because it didn't make sense. Now, look, I know that I wasn't immune to having bad things happen just because Jesus is my savior. Like, I get that. But, when you're going along, doing your life, you just don't think that this is going to happen to you, especially when you're somebody that is following what, quote unquote, you think you're supposed to be following according to God. And then you're told that you're supposed to have all this great favor because you're a Christian. And I'm just looking out that window going, yeah, so this is what favor looks like? Because this just sucks. And this is hurt and pain that is beyond what any single human being should ever have to endure. But there I was, walking down a new path of life. There was one night in the summer, I remember very specifically. The kids had gone to bed. It was probably 1 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And Don's picture from the memorial had been propped up like on the buffet. It was at least an 11 by 17 picture, and then you put the mat in the frame. So it was pretty big. And I just grabbed that thing and I turned on our stereo and I started playing Husbands and Wives by Brooks and Dunn. Don loved Brooks and Dunn. They were one of his favorite groups. I grabbed that picture and I held it to my chest. And it was a fairly big frame, so I had my arms wrapped around it. I just was squeezing it as tight as I could. And that song started to play, and I just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed because I couldn't believe that I would never again have a dance with my husband. And the reason that's so significant is because whenever Don and I would dance together, which was usually at a wedding, right? Something like that. We'd always have a dance or two, and every time I danced with him, I would always sit and think, my gosh, this is awesome, because I am in love with my husband. All these years later, I'm at this wedding, dancing with the man that I would pick again and again and again. How amazing is that? Because I knew not everybody had that. In fact, probably most of the people at that wedding didn't have that. I knew how amazing that was. And those moments that we would dance together, they would just kind of stand still. And I would just soak in the smell of his cologne and the broadness of his shoulders and the sweetness of me being able to nestle my head right into his neck. And that feeling of safety. Because I knew that my husband loved me as much as I loved him. So as I stood in that living room, holding on to that picture of him, dancing to this beautifully sweet song, the grief just washed me away. It just washed me away. I couldn't even hear the music because I was crying so hard. I just envisioned the whole time him having his arms wrapped around me. I would have given anything at all to have one last dance with Don. But there I was, completely alone. But what's interesting is that when I look back on that night, on that moment in time that I held my husband's picture and danced to one of his favorite songs, I can recollect that hope was there. There was something in that moment, and it was really in that pain that existed in that moment. It was such a deep feeling of suffering and loss, yet the simplicity of that moment was so powerful to me. It was just simple. It was pure. It was genuine. My soul was dying, but yet there was something wonderful in that because of the purity of it, because nothing else mattered. It didn't matter that I was going to have to move out of my house. It didn't matter that I didn't have any money anymore. It didn't matter that I had to sell everything. It didn't matter that we were going to have to fight like hell to ever resurface again. What mattered was that I got to dance with my husband. Maybe not in that moment, but in all those moments before. How wonderful that was that I got to have that. And I remember feeling extremely grateful. And when you're extremely grateful, you know that hope is walking with you. Because you can't have a thankful heart without having love. So if love is there, then so is hope. Because according to the Bible, love always hopes. It was a bittersweet moment, for sure. But it was also a beautiful moment because it cleared everything out of the way. And it was just me and my suffering. But that suffering produced clarity, and my clarity gave me thankfulness. And my thankfulness gave me love, and my love gave me hope. Now, I always talk about how I can't necessarily say I recognized all of that when it was happening, because it's only when I look back and I process that I can see and I can tap into the depth of my pain and to kind of dissect it to go, yeah, that's really what I felt. But that's why we're here talking, so that going forward, we can all learn to recognize that even in our pain, hope is right there. There was another night over the summer that I'll never forget. And it was again late. It was dark out. So it had to have been at least 10 p.m., right? Because in the summertime, it doesn't usually get dark until late. And I had been sitting in the living room, and one of my kids came downstairs. And as they were walking downstairs, I could see on their face that they were just completely lost. Almost like didn't know which end was up. Just lost. Almost dazed and confused even. So I said, hey, come on over. And we sat on the floor together. And I said, hey, you okay? And then the tears just started bursting out. And the gut-wrenching crying began. And the body compressed into the fetal position and started shaking amongst the tears. What do you do with that moment as a parent? When you see your child in such excruciating pain, what do you do with that? Well, I did what I think most of us parents do. I carried the hope that they needed to hear. Didn't matter that I didn't necessarily feel the hope myself. I just knew that I had to give it to my child. And that's what I did. As my child was crying out, I know I'm never going to be able to be happy again, Mom. Not without Dad. He was my best friend. I don't know how I'm ever going to live. And I said, I know. But you're going to. And we're going to get through this as a family. And we're going to rise again. And we're going to carry on in Dad's name. And you are going to be happy. And something great is going to come out of this. Something magnificent. Something beautiful. I don't know how, but it's going to. And you are going to change the world because of what you're going through. And I believed it when I said it. I don't know how I believed it, because I certainly didn't believe there was hope for me, but I believed there was hope for my children, because I was going to fight like hell to make sure there was. I didn't know much, but I did know this much. I was going to make God make their life amazing. He didn't have a choice. He was going to have to. And I didn't care what I had to do. My children were going to rise again. So I held that hope for them. I stood in that hope for my children. There was something inside of me that knew that if God allowed this to happen to these young little beings, that there has to be greatness that comes out of this, that the world has to be different because of it. I don't know how I knew that. I just did. Because I guess when it comes to being a parent for your child, it's different than what it is for your own self. And I just knew that I had to carry the hope for my kids. Almost immediately after Don died, I started journaling. I think journaling's fantastic for anyone that is processing anything. It doesn't even have to be something sad. It can be something good. So for the first several months, I actually wrote in a journal book. And then after that, I started to basically voice journal. So I would just talk into my phone and whatever I was feeling. And I was just real and raw and honest. And I said everything and anything that I needed to get out. But one of the mornings, about 4 or 5 weeks after Don died, I wrote an entry, and I'm just going to read a section of it, just to kind of give you an idea of the continuing process of being in shock and trying to grab on to the reality and facing the grief. So this was a journal entry dated July 21st, 2013. How are you gone? It's been a month and I still can't comprehend that you're dead. I open the coat closet and I can smell you just as if you were here. I look at your picture and I feel like I'm going crazy because you're just supposed to be here. How are you not here? How are we not together on this earth anymore? How am I supposed to live my life without you? How am I supposed to raise our children without their father? Did these questions never really cross your mind? Really? I know they didn't in the moment you pulled the trigger, but how about in the moments before? You must have thought of your actions before you did it. Either years, months, days, or even minutes before you did it. My God, did you not think that would ruin our lives more than being evicted? The sad truth is that you didn't. You didn't think your value to us was worth more than the timbers we lived in. That who you were as a whole was what mattered, not the mistakes that you made. And that cuts me in two. I'm sorry for my part in making you feel like the end-all to life was our house. I know I did that. Please forgive me. That was my need to feel safe and in control because of my hurt as a child. We're all broken. I fear that I may be so broken now that I am simply shattered, unable to be reassembled. It's 5 a.m. and I'm sitting here in the dead quiet of the morning, watching the sun creep up. You were always up every morning at this time. I wonder what you thought. Did you grab on tight to the hope of a new day? A chance to right your wrongs? I think you did for a long time. And then one day came along, one morning, where the hope of a new sunrise was gone. And in its place the shadows began to grow, and eventually those shadows faded to complete darkness. The mornings became ominous and few, as your hope turned into despair. I know, honey, because that's what they are for me. When the sun rises, my darkest hours begin. And that's how it was. The night times were safe. The mornings and days were dark. But then one day came along that helped bring light into those dark days. And a package of hope arrived in a perfect box with a magnificent bow on top. Now, I was just doing what I normally do, which was huddle up on that ugly green couch, and I look over and I notice something at my front door. Now, we had a set of double doors that were mostly all glass. I looked over and I could kind of see something like moving. And as I took a little closer look, there was a pair of cream-colored, pointy, furry ears sticking up from the bottom of the glass. And that's all I could see, were just the tops of these pointy ears. So I got up and I walked over to the front door, and there was this incredible bundle of cuteness. It was a little Pomeranian puppy. And it couldn't have been more than 2 pounds. No way was it more than 2 pounds. It was little. I don't know where it came from that day. I was just like, you got to be kidding me. This thing is literally the most adorable thing I've ever seen in my entire existence. For reals. Well, come to find out, my neighbors a couple doors down had gotten a new puppy. So for the next several weeks, this little puppy would waddle its way down our road, push and pull itself up our steps to our front porch. And we had 5 or 6 steps before you got up to where our front door was. And that little rugrat would come up to that front door, and it got to the point then where it would put its paws up on the door and lean up so then I could at least see like his head. Every day, he'd come down to visit, and the kids and I just melted around him. He was such a ball of fun. He was so energetic. He put such a smile on our faces that I knew I had to get us a puppy. And so I decided we're going to get a little bundle of fur for ourselves. Because you know what? Sometimes hope actually does come in a perfect little box with a beautiful bow on top, and even gets hand delivered. And this was one of those times. So I ended up surprising the kids with a little Pomeranian puppy of our own, who we appropriately named Barry Sanders, after the greatest running back ever. Because, Don loved the Lions, so Barry Sanders was his name. And you know what? He changed our life. Now, maybe it doesn't sound that surprising that a little puppy would change our life. But the practicality of it is that we were able to pour our love into something as a family. That a little cute, furry creature could make my kids laugh, even giggle. That they would have something that they looked forward to when they got out of school, that they couldn't wait to come home to just pour their love into this little being. How cool is that? How cool that in the middle of the days being so dark, that God would send a messenger in the form of a little cream-colored puffball to say, I'm going to show you that you can laugh. I'm going to show you that happiness can exist. I'm going to show you that love can fill you up. I'm going to show you that hope is real. Sometimes we can't see it. Sometimes we just don't recognize it. Sometimes we have to step back or process to see that it's actually there. And then other times, it just slaps us in the face with a fuzzy ball of cuteness. So, if you're curious about good old Barry Sanders, head over to my blog at theonionpeel.com and you can check him out. I have a picture and a video I think it's worth a look-see. I think you'll enjoy it. So head on over theonionpeel.com, where my blog is. And you can see how one little fuzzball led to another fuzzball, all in the name of hope. So with that, I think it's time to put this onion back in the bin until we talk again. And thanks, guys. Thanks for sharing your time with me. And hey, I have my merch out now. So if you go to my website, hit the shop drop down, and boom, there's all my stuff. I got some good stuff. So check it out. I would love for you to help me share this message of hope, whether it be through wearing one of my sweatshirts or rating me on Apple Podcasts, liking me on Facebook, or following me on Instagram at The Onion Peel. Anything. I'm on a mission to spread hope because we all need hope. Thanks, guys. I hope that you have an awesome day.